I'm from Texas.
What's up, everybody? We're back again. 5th episode, just talking ball. We're rolling now. I think we're committed. You know, what do you think, Eric? We're committed. We're committed to this.
We're in this thing now.
Oh yeah, but we wanted to stop by real quick. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. We're gonna do a quick little family Thanksgiving show. You know, we're not gonna keep y'all long, but we definitely want to talk about what went on in the college football world and some trending topics. So we're gonna jump right into it right now with what's going on. So first things first, Eric's favorite thing. We're gonna talk about college football playoff because his team is slowly but surely getting up there. And tell me what you think about what's going on. Yeah, I mean, and it's, he likes it because I'm gonna tell y'all right now, it's about timing. It's about being good in November, letting some people hang themselves early December and see where you end up. But we're gonna get into this right now. So tell me what you think about it, man. They had some real movement in the top 4 finally.
You had some movement. Honestly, you just had Washington jump Florida State, and you feel for the Seminoles. You really do, because with Jordan Travis, the sky's literally the limit. I was very impressed with them. Very impressed with their defense, their defensive line. They've probably got the second defensive line in the country, honestly. So I would have loved
second to who?
If we're being honest,
Hey,
if we're being honest,
we're talking with our head. We're talking with our head in this show, not our heart.
If we're being honest, the University of Texas is putting a defensive line out there that, you just played a full game where you only allowed 9 yards rushing.
Hey,
so
kudos. Hey, I wanted to hear you say it. Put it out there.
Yeah, Byron Murphy, Tavondre Sweat, they're the best interior defensive lineman combo in the country. That I'm convinced of. Depth. They have all the tools. You probably got 4 guys that are going to get drafted in the first 6 rounds of the NFL draft. So,
well, he told you why he feels that way.
But no, some real movement. I will say you start to get a little concerned that there's no movement on the Oregon front. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of where I wish the committee was just kind of asked to show, which I think is a fair ask, by the way, asked to show your work a little bit, because you've got these rankings, you've got some of these things make sense. Georgia makes sense. Ohio State makes sense. Michigan makes sense right now.
Yeah.
But when you get to 4 through 8, it really starts to become subjective, because the difference between the teams is marginal.
Yeah.
So show your work. Explain to us, why is Oregon ahead of Texas?
Yeah.
Because if we're looking at the metrics, if we're looking at big wins, if we're looking at top 25 wins, if we're looking at strength of schedule, if we're looking at strength of record, right? Meaning, for those who don't know, right, the people that you beat, how have they fared?
Yeah, they still got hold of their end of the bargain.
Because we can talk all day, Texas, beat Wyoming, which isn't sexy in name, but it's the same Wyoming team that beat Texas Tech, that literally without a ridiculous pick 6, Texas Tech probably goes on to beat Oregon, right, in that game
early. Yeah.
So, and Wyoming again, bowl eligible, playing for their conference championship as well. So you got teams, and you've played a tougher schedule. So you've beat better competition thus far than Oregon has. Oregon can't control the Pac-12. I understand that. They can absolutely control out of conference, but just kind of show your work. Tell us why. And it's the eye test. And this is one of the only frustrations that I do think I have with Coach Sark. If I had to name one, he's not about sexy wins.
Politicking. Oh, are they going to say politicking?
He kind of did that a little bit last week. Didn't do it this week, but last week he kind of did that a little bit.
Also, social media, some things about culture and how they do things. Yeah. I've been seeing the rumble.
Well, no, he kind of talked about he talked about the Alabama win, and he said, we think we've got the best win in the country, because everybody talked about Alabama's being a down year, this, that, and the other. Yeah. Said, but nobody else has beat them.
But
nobody else has gone to Tuscaloosa.
But like you say, but I think he's also, like say, just doing. I've seen more social media things, and like I say, it's the whole body of work, and it's kind of starting to come to its conclusion. Like, okay, one regular season game left. We're going to be playing another conference championship. Some things in the next 2 weeks, some major things have got to happen, because that's all the auditions you have left to play, you know, to
Right.
see
And
what
I,
happens.
I think I wish there was somebody in his ear. You think about boxing, right? And somebody's in the sixth round and they're just kind of boxing and they're still staying true to their fundamentals. And somebody gets in their ear and says, "You're losing. On the scorecard, you're losing." Right. So you got to come out with a different kind of fire and fury. And
No doubt. Sense of urgency.
a sense of urgency. And I believe that, which I do think there's some merit and some truth to it, that if everything in the world was perfect and went as it should be, all Texas has to do is just win.
Yeah.
Right. But you've also got to start to hedge the bet and say, okay, what if we do win? But what if other people win too?
Yeah.
And candidly, I think the committee is showing us that a narrow win versus Kansas State is not valued as highly as a 30-point win against a 4-win Arizona State team.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that quote unquote eye test, and I look really good today if I go play basketball against my 6-year-old niece. I really do. But if I go play against somebody my own age or younger with a better skill set, not so good.
Yeah.
Right. So just kind of wish they would just explain the reasoning. But other than that, I think everything makes sense. I'll tell you something to look out for too. You've got Louisville at 10. And you assume they're going to win this week. Playing a Florida State with a backup quarterback, if Florida State manages to escape the swamp with their backup quarterback, who hasn't played very much this year, despite
they let Missouri drive them. Yeah,
right. Despite some of their blowouts, I would love to see what happens with a 12-1 Louisville ACC champion at the 10 spot. I think 10 is a little high because now you've got to really start to jump some folks that aren't there. But that's something to look out for.
And I'm gonna show you something in a minute. I found this graphic just for you, you know, that I want to show you. But I want to touch on something real quick that I just looking at now that I'm truly on the outside, looking in, meaning me and my Kansas Jayhawks. Is still rock chalk though. But you know, so I still think y'all in a favorable position, meaning Texas, because not to downplay Texas Tech because they can come up and bite you because they did it to us, you know, in Lawrence. And then, you know,
they did it to us last year.
Yeah, and then the Big 12, the Big 12 championship, you know, I think is favorable for y'all, whoever. But I mean, you know, I'm just thinking that Texas has a better chance to win out and be in that position than Oregon, because Oregon possibly have to play. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't follow Oregon as much, but Oregon State's not going to be a pushover.
Oregon
week.
State
And
at
then
home
in a rematch against
and then
Washington
a rematch
in the
against
Pac-
Washington.
Okay, exactly. So so that's I see them losing either one of those games. I'm not going to say both games, but realistically they can lose either one of those games. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
So I'll give you best case and worst case.
I made a mistake, but I mean, well, here we go. While you're talking about it, I'm gonna go ahead and hit what
I'll give you best case, worst case scenario if you're a Texas fan. Best case scenario, they lose to Oregon State but go on to beat Washington. Worst case scenario, they beat Oregon State and they beat Washington. Because then you've got there's not a real opportunity for Texas to jump them.
Exactly, and no question. And then y'all are both conference championship. And this is the
this
whole
what
deal.
You have here. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the whole deal. Yeah, I was talking about. So how would you who would you put in?
Texas is in at 4, Michigan at 1, Florida State at 2, Oregon at 3, Texas at 4. There is no world short of Texas beating Texas Tech by 3, beating presumably Oklahoma State by 1, you know.
So yes,
and you've got Alabama absolutely destroying Auburn and absolutely destroying Georgia. In that world, I do think you at least have to have the conversation. I still don't see how you get through that. I don't see how you get past the head-to-head with Texas because you played on the field.
Yeah, and that's where it should be decided. Yes.
Yeah, all the players are in place. There were no backup quarterbacks. There were no major injuries to speak of. If anything, Texas is probably a little bit better defensively as a whole than they were going into Tuscaloosa today. But I probably not as explosive offensively either because there have been little nicks and bruises there. But so everything en masse is about what it was. And Alabama fans would argue um, that their quarterback is a lot better than he was then. Maybe, maybe not. We don't know. What I do know is that Texas were rolled into Tuscaloosa and gave Nick Saban one of the worst home losses in his coaching career, right? So that you can't under
Yeah.
or overstate those things because I had this conversation with someone. They're like, well, they only beat him by 10. I was like, first of all, nobody beats him, period. And when they
Exactly.
do, it's
Exactly.
by 3, it's by 4. The
You got
previous worst home loss was 7.
you got to watch who you have those conversations with.
Every
That's my new
and that was
policy.
first off, and this was a football person, and I want to disabuse everybody of that notion because I know it's true. I follow basketball. I'm far more familiar with basketball, but we have to start disabusing ourselves of the notion that just because somebody played the sport that they know the sport better,
Exactly.
because there are so many, just because I can run fast and jump high and hit hard, that
Well,
doesn't mean that I can look at something and actually
exactly.
describe or analyze what is happening. So I think
And
there's some truth to that.
just because you played, and so maybe some of the decisions and the way you did things didn't make you a good player, and that's why it is.
That's true. That's true too. And
So it I mean, and not to sit here and say that we're sitting on top of Mount Everest and we're the kings of all knowledge, but I'm just saying, it is what it is. That's why they keep scores. It's a competitive sport,
there are
and
absolute folks out
it's
there that know
yeah,
the game much better than me for
yeah. Oh,
one.
me too, me
And
too.
you'd argue that there are people that know it better than you, but
Yeah,
it has nothing to do with the fact that they played or didn't play.
exactly, exactly.
It's because they've put the time in, they've honed their craft, they've studied their craft,
Hmm.
they've been around insightful folks and have had inside tracks in their life, but that has nothing to do with they played or not. I think
Because
one of the
there is a crossover. There is a
yeah,
crossover from player to coach, and that could be a whole nother conversation. But the biggest
yeah.
example is Michael Jordan has been asked numerous times, why didn't you coach? Like, how you gonna coach somebody to do? Because that's what you're gonna want. You're gonna look at this
What I
coach,
have,
yeah,
what I
and
did.
yeah,
Absolutely.
and they're gonna want them to be able to teach you how to do that because I always remember TD Jake said this in a sermon that how can someone show me a destination that they've never reached themselves before? How can you show me how to get somewhere that you've never been before? But now on the other side of that, Michael Jordan is Michael Jordan. Nobody's gonna be, I won't say nobody, but I mean nobody has
And
done
there are
the
things that we
things,
can all do. We're all
yeah.
blessed with
Oh,
individual
no doubt, no
abilities,
doubt,
right?
no
My
doubt.
brain works a certain way. I can't coach somebody to think how I think
Exactly. And we're all
or
blessed with
see
different
what I
abilities,
see.
physical
Right.
abilities, attributes of, yeah. So, but going there. So getting back to this. So undefeated, you got to let them in. That's 1 and 2, hands down, no argument. You got to put the 2 undefeated teams at 1 and 2. So really, the fight for everything else is at 3 and 4, is what you're saying, correct?
Yes, and I do think again it's the same Alabama Texas thing. I think you
Yeah.
have the inside track at 13-0 at Florida State
Uh huh.
of being in, but I do think it is at least fair to entertain the question of would you have still, and there's no way to know, right? And everyone just kind of, it's an emotional question, I guess, because the ACC is not very good, right?
Mm-hmm.
One, we all agree, one loss in the
Yeah.
ACC probably puts you on the outside looking in
Mm-hmm.
of the conversation, and then you have a backup quarterback. So how is our goal to get the best 4 teams today in this playoff? Or is our goal to reward people who have been the best 4 teams for a majority of the year? Because I think you get a different result. If it's
No
the
doubt.
best 4 teams today, I don't think you can put Florida State in that conversation anymore. I've got to see the
You're
backup
right.
quarterback.
Well,
But
I mean,
it would have to take something I would be surprised to see from him to say that they're still worthy of being one of the top 4 teams in the country. Because you get in, you put them in because we want to play nice and we want to reward people and want to be politically correct, and then they
yeah.
go get the doors blown off by Georgia, and then we are like, why did we do that?
Well, I don't know. I know I did read and I did hear on ESPN that a big reason that they were pulled out of the top 4 is because the Jordan
Right.
Travis injury. hands down, nothing else. They got the win. They're undefeated, but because that quarterback makes them go, or he has such an impact on the success of the team, or how he makes that team that much better on paper as well. They just pulled it, and so those are some tricky things because if I'm in that room or on that staff, I'm a little bothered by that because we're still getting the job done by any means necessary. Because at the end of the day, if I'm undefeated, I should at least be in the top four, no matter what. But I mean, I don't know. It's. I'm talking about from where they are
Yeah.
now. A Liberty being or James Madison. I know they lost this past week, but them being undefeated, that's a little different. I'm talking about where they are now. In the they were in the top four and they felt that they didn't do anything wrong to be put out of the top four. So that's kind of my reasoning behind it. I would
Like
be a
I
little
said, I
bothered
think it
by
all
that.
comes down to what questions are folks in the room going to ask, because I think
Yeah.
different questions will give you a different answer.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Well, got some games coming up on Friday and Saturday. It's going to have some major implications on it. So, I mean, we'll sit back in there. So we're going to move on, man. Because we still got to talk about some stuff that will impact the college football playoff. Now, they had a documentary come out. They see I'm rocking. I'm not wearing my Kansas stuff because I've lost faith in them. Because, I'm rock chalk to the day I die. But before I became a Kansas Jayhawk, I was always a Barry Sanders fan. And he has a documentary out called Bye Bye Barry. And I've watched it 3 times already. And I don't know how I had this hoodie. I ordered it. I don't know when I got this hoodie, but I wore it today in honor of that documentary dropping a couple of days ago. And I watched it. And I mean, I tell you, Barry Sanders is who I emulated as a young child, a young man, as a college football player, because I wanted to do the things that he did. And the way he carried himself on the field, the way he scored. I mean, when I scored a touchdown, I would hand the ball to the referee. Why? Because Barry did it. Now, it was
Right.
fun and sexy looking to see those guys do these dances or, get on your knee and thank God. I mean, every now and then I would get on my knee and thank God and, throw my hand up in the air. But like, I mean, my high school coaches adopted that same act like you've been there before. And, I mean, this documentary, obviously, I want to relive some of these highlights and some of these Thanksgiving games that I watched with Barry. But really, this documentary is centered around why he just walked away in the fall of '99. I was actually in school. And I just gave away my age, but I was in college when, Barry retired. And that was a sad moment, man. I mean, he
I
was.
haven't seen it. Did they answer the question?
He did in so many ways. He did, and I won't give it away. I want people to go watch it. I mean, this dude, man, the way I mean, from being from Wichita, Kansas, and he tells a story about 3 teams recruited him. He had offers from Iowa State, Tulsa, and Oklahoma State, and he's right there from Wichita. So I don't know what the deal is. I mean, obviously, I didn't get recruited by everybody in the nation. He was a type. The coach taught his high school coach from Wichita North. Excuse me, wrong. I'm almost sure Wichita North talked about how Barry could have had all these records, and I think he rushed for like 1,400 yards his senior year, and he was all state and all world. But he, the coach had asked him, "Hey, do you want to go for this record, and do you want to or you want to give some of these young kids a chance to play?" Like, coach, now put them young kids in. I mean, he was never about that. He had a chance to break the record, hit the rookie rushing record. I think he fell short like 11 yards in Detroit. He like, no, we won the game. That's good enough for me. I mean, just it's different. And some people are like, why is he like that? But they show an interview of him after he got drafted in the first round, and he just the guys kind of talk to him about, well, you don't like the attention and you don't want to be around the media. Say, well, that's not necessarily it. He was just saying it's just I'm more of a team player, and I wish you would respect my opinion on, not wanting to always be in the spotlight. I mean, he's a cold dude, man. I mean, he's just so cool about it. And I mean, Barry Sanders, you hear that name, Barry Sanders. I mean, you're a little younger than me, Eric, obviously, but like, I think back to those, everybody wanted to be like Barry. And, you talk about, they interview Emmitt Smith, and, one of my biggest prayers at night, being a Dallas Cowboy fan, much respect to Emmitt Smith. I think he's one of the greatest, but it was to trade Emmitt for Barry Sanders, and all would have been right in the world. That was my Christmas wish. That was my prayers at night during football season every year. And it had nothing to do with me going to Dallas Cowboy training camp one year and running up to Emmitt Smith Pathfinder to get an autograph, and he burnt off on me. But I mean, that just added fuel to the fire. That's a true story.
So it made it more likely that you were ready for
man, that's why Barry's better than you, But But I mean, it's a great documentary on Amazon Prime, and I mean, I watched Barry Sanders clips, man. I like I said, I tried to model my game after him, you know, just be everything that he do, and it got to be such a known fact when I was in high school when I was getting recruited. The Oklahoma State coaching staff used that as a tool to recruit me. So why don't you go play? Come play where your favorite player. And dude, it almost got me.
It almost worked.
It almost worked, but God had another say in it, and I mean, and when we played in Stillwater, I remember it running on the turf in pregame, like, man, it's the same turf Barry Sanders. I felt different that night that we played Oklahoma State, but
You felt the spirit of Barry. How'd you play that game?
What? I made some cuts. We didn't win. We did not win. I'm gonna be honest. We did not win.
You didn't play like Barry. Is the
No,
answer?
well, yeah. That's the answer. And I didn't get to show up for my idol at his home ground. Not that he was worried about it. Barry is the different dude, but yeah, it was great, man. So this is my honor to my football idol, man, Barry Sanders. So y'all go check that out. But we're gonna move on. So once again, I'm gonna let my man go first. These boys pulled it out again, and I'm gonna give respect what respect is due. How are you feeling right now after the Iowa State game? Which,
you spend a little bit of time going pre-Ames, right? You know the kind of team you have. You've seen them year over year or week over week, right? Find different ways to win. Sark really talks about the culture and being versatile and finding different ways to win. So you've seen that now 9 weeks coming into the game, but you're still a little nervous, right? You've lost 4 of the last 5 in Ames. You got the Ames players, talking cash-ish, right? So you kind of were just a little worried that how are they going to feel and how are they going to respond? And defensively, boy, did they. Right, 9 yards rushing, allowed 320 yards in the air, but that's a little misleading in terms of kind of how the defensive staff chose to play. Chose to play bend don't break, chose to not press a ton. They pressed early and they kept getting beat on the inside, and I think that was a little bit by design because even though they would make the catch, there were always people flying to the ball in the middle of the field. So it felt like now rewatching the game that was kind of the plan, right? We're going to force them into this spot and inch by inch, and we're just going to kind of squeeze them and squeeze that possession out. You take away kind of a pop pass that they had that was blown coverage, and you probably keep them out of the end zone all game. So I thought defensively, man, they were lights out. Offensively, in the second half, from the coaching staff and from the player perspective, man, they were nails. Quinn Ewers in the second half, I think, was 85% completion percentage, 91% completion percentage in the fourth quarter. Only one turnover in the game. Controlled the clock, right?
Yeah. So Baxter goes for over 100 yards rushing.
Exactly. Exactly. So I thought they played really well. I thought they responded, and you did primarily what you had to do.
Yeah.
It was funny. There's much to be made about a commissioner of the conference rooting against the specific team, choosing sides and all that. And credit to Texas, they're taking a much higher road than I ever would. When he was in Ames, and it started rough from an officiating perspective. And I think everyone, kind of in talking to some players and hearing some things in the background, right, they kind of rallied around that it's us and it's just going to be us. And we've got to make it so clear that we're not the same team anymore. And I think there was a turning point in the game. And the players kind of rallied around it when Sarkisian got into it with one of the officials, and it was a kind of a minor thing in the grand scheme, but kind of some things snowball, and the smallest things is what tip you over the edge. There were a couple of bad calls on Texas, bad no calls against Texas, and Sark really calm, cool, and collected, real calm demeanor. And then at the very end of the half, Texas was expecting the play clock to get reset, and it did not. and
That's
they
happened.
didn't
I've seen that
tell
happen, yeah, to them
and
more
they
than
didn't
one time.
tell the coaching staff that that it wasn't going to be reset, and Sark had to burn a timeout, and that was right before the end of the half, where Bert Auburn kicked a 50-yard field goal to go into half, but Sark let him have it. He's like, "You got to tell me that.
Yeah.
Do your job. That's your job. Do your job." And I thought the players really responded, because it is very rare. I wish he did it more. I love a fiery coach. I love a guy that's going to fight for his guys and be vocal. And Sark is very, very much calm, cool, and collected, never too high, never too low. And the times that he does get hot and bothered, I think the team really rallies around it, and they really start to understand that. So
You
I
mean like
thought
kickoff of the Alamo Bowl against Washington last year?
say it again.
Like kickoff at the Alamo Bowl against Washington
That
last
didn't
year?
count, man. That I don't think that was the same, because that's not fighting for the kids. He was fighting for himself. Hey, but haven't heard that story, man. That's funny. I think
Yeah.
we always forget sometimes when we see either a coach, we see it
Yeah.
with Nick Saban, and you just don't expect those guys to have bad days. You don't
Yeah.
expect those
They're
guys to get
human. They don't
frustrated.
expect them to be
You
human.
know,
They don't expect them to be human.
and you also forget, just in general, they're grown men, and that's a man, that's one grown man to another saying, "I heard you. You don't have to keep touching me."
Yeah.
Right. And he kept touching them. And when you see Texas kind of strategically leaked, maybe a week or so after it happened, you saw the full interaction and not just the clip. And it kind of makes sense, because like the
But
dude
it's
tapped
good.
him like 5 or 6 times. And he's like, "I
Yeah.
got you."
Yeah. And it's good because that's a great example of you telling your own story rather than somebody else telling the
Yep.
story, So, but yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Just you talked about, he was fired up for his team. So, well, I'll let you finish about the victory names, but go ahead.
No,
Oh,
again,
that was
honestly,
it.
just
Yeah.
giving credit and circling back to what I think is, again, the best defensive line in the country. And then you still got maybe your best pass rusher is a sophomore who's been banged up, in Ethan Burke. You've got some true freshmen coming off the edge in Anthony Hill and Colton Vasek. So the future is really bright for Texas defensively long term. But this year, man, I think we've got to really enjoy an NFL caliber defensive line, because how often does that happen?
Yeah. Just
So
like
being where our feet are today,
Yeah.
want to give them credit and give them their flowers, because again, they're doing it. Tavondre Sweat wears this chain about as big as my head.
Yeah, I've actually seen
Make them sweat.
that. Yeah, I've actually
It
seen that
says
in
make them
person.
sweat, man. And I think they're really starting to do that. And we've talked about the mental aspect of the game before. Last thing I'll touch on, because I thought the Iowa State program certainly made a choice, right? In the fact that they were going to, be vocal about what they thought about Texas and what they thought would happen. And
Why not? Easy enough.
Sarkisian
Yeah.
made the strategic choice. Common thing you'll hear today is stand on business.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So he said, you think that we think highly of ourselves? I'm going to send the guys out there that you're going to see, because they often have different team captains. So there was no coincidence that Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy were team captains.
Oh yeah.
And he said, I want you to see them. He talked about it in his Monday presser. I wanted them to see that. And basically I wanted them to stand on business.
Oh, and that makes a difference, man. There's so many mind games played throughout the week, getting off the bus pregame, coin toss, and then the game's finally played. So there's so much built up before that. I mean, like you say, if you had to be a captain, and I'm over here looking at this 6'5", 300, and how big is that kid?
He's 380.
380. See, and so looking at me, that he's gonna be chasing me all night. Yeah, I'm confident in my ability, but I wasn't ready to see him yet. And then let him show up if he makes a play. Not, don't put him in my face right away. I mean, I'm not gonna say this. I'm not gonna tell the school that this happened. But my sophomore year, a defensive lineman threatened to shoot me in the parking lot after the game because it was just the frustration and the mind games and the how things were going. And we laughed about it after the game and shook hands and all that. But I mean, just it can push you to that point, and it's like I say, right up to the line. Right up to the line. You got to do what you got to do, man. But well, congrats on that. I still haven't made a decision yet, man, if I'm gonna go to the Texas Tech game. I don't know. I gotta see how my turkey come out first. But yeah, so we're gonna move on. So obviously Kansas State played Sunflower Showdown 2023. Now I got away and I went by myself to an undisclosed location, and I wanted to chart and I wanted to look at every single thing. So if it looked like I'm reading off a piece of paper because I typed up notes, and it was just because the love for my team, nothing critical, but just watching the the flow, the ebb and flow of the game. And my brother actually came and found me, and he he sat and finished the game with me.
He
And
had to do a wellness check.
yeah, yeah, he did. And well, at that point, it was all good. I was well. It was all good. But when this game started, it was senior night in Lawrence, and there was questions up in the air by Jason Bean whether he's going to be able to play or not. Hate for him, first of all, that he couldn't play his last game in Lawrence. Because he's done so much for the team. Not just yeah, he's technically the backup quarterback, but he's contributed more than any backup in recent time. Especially for Kansas. Right out the gate, in case they got the ball, I mean, the disrespect was just blatant. I mean, I think they go play action right over the top and they completed. I mean, and they're a good team. And I was just looking at, and that's what I wrote. I said, K-State's trying to make a statement, and I said, no respect. So big time tight end Senate, they scored with them first. They only ran one. They ran the ball one time in that first drive to score. And what we've been talking about all year long, K-State's a running football team, and I mean, even when we were at that game in Austin, when Texas played K-State, that's what we were coming out and expecting to see. And to your credit, circling back around, that Texas D line, it shut it down, and like you say, that was probably the best 28 minutes Texas ever played on defense, as far as like shutting down a very good running team. They couldn't throw the ball. But anyway, I don't want to get off this. So Cole Ballard starts. And for some reason, I don't know, Highshaw, I don't want to sound like an idiot. He could be a senior. He might. I think he's a senior. He started as well. We got Devin coming back for another year. So Cole Ballard being a starter, getting his first start, against a great ranked team in a rivalry game. They had to do some different things offensively. They ran a lot of wildcat. They brought some older guys in, ran some speed option with Torrey Lachlan, who's been like a Swiss Army knife for Kansas for the last couple of years. Receiver, running back, wildcat quarterback, special teams. So he's done a lot of things. And we go 3 and out, which I won't say is expected, but it's not mind blowing with with a freshman quarterback in his first start. I really thought they tried to establish a passing game. Kansas State tried to establish a passing game, which I still don't think they're good at. There are a run team. Kansas stops them. And this is all just the first quarter. So early, they tried to move the pocket with Ballard, get him out the way, get him, because I think he has great legs, for a young player, quarterback, and he is not afraid to run. I talked about that before. But using Highshaw and Devin Neal in some wildcat situations, kind of taking some of the pressure off them. We do run the ball well. Okay. Right? So second quarter comes around. We had the confidence to go for it on fourth down, which I like, because that's what Kansas has done all year. We had to run for the first down. But we got the first down, I'm sorry. And then the next play, Devin Neal scores on a 46-yard run. So those gambles paid off, because that's who Kansas has been all year. And Kansas, and when people talk about KU in the last 2, 3, 4 years, it's they've got to do these things to even have a chance. It's that they've got to do unconventional, non-traditional things to even be in the game, because they're so bad.
You got to play the game of their life. Yeah, right.
Yes. Now, last year, quarter of a year, they've been very good on offense. And I'm talking about offense right now. They've been very good on offense. And they're still taking those gambles, or those calculated, or using analytics real hard early in games to, like, say, go for it on fourth down. Why not? If you're on this side of the field, you've got a freshman quarterback. And some people may say, well, why? You should be a little more conservative. No, you got to go play the game that you play, and we talk about things like recruiting and other things like that, as far as like having depth. And I talked about it last week, Kansas having depth at quarterback, because they've been going through some quarterback adversity, not controversy. So, it's a credit to Coach Leipold and his staff. But anyway, coming back around, second quarter, that big score. But K-State comes back again, and they had some bad calls, some penalties. I thought they had a fourth down call, pass interference that went against us. There was contact within the first 5 yards, really bailed Kansas State out to continue their drive, and they end up scoring off of that. So I really didn't like that, but I thought in that first half, Coach the OC Coach Kolanecki did a great job incorporating everybody into the offensive game plan, which I spoke about earlier. Just keep the defense on their toes, things that they haven't seen on film. Because if I'm not mistaken, I think that's the first time that they've used Lachlan as a quarterback, an option quarterback in the Wildcat position this year. So come back, made a late throw to Lawrence Arnold, the DeSoto, Texas native, and make a score, and we go up 2016 at halftime. So we're feeling good about it. This is a game where traditionally or in the past we haven't been in it. We hadn't been in it even by half, or we've been down by 2 scores, which is not too bad. But you kind of still had the feeling like we're just trying to hold on for dear life to stay in the game. So you come back in the second half. They get a kick out of bounds. We get it. We hit Big Mason Fairchild for a big gain. To see that boy rumbling down at 6'5", 260 down the sideline, which was his longest reception in his career, which was his senior night as well. So that was a little nugget, a tidbit for him to go down and put Kansas in the red zone, and to come back and go speed option and get a quick score, Ballard to Devin Neal, and it's 27-16. And it's like, okay, we're the better football team on the field right now. And you can see it, you can feel it, So K-State comes back, defense gets a stop. We drop an interception. Rich Miller drops an interception in the third quarter, which would have been, that's kind of been our deal. We're right there, but we can't just put the dagger in. We can't, put the nail in the coffin, but still played well, and came back. But we had some turnovers. I really felt we was going to win this game, and I wanted to document everything about it. But we come back in the fourth quarter, we get a big sack by Austin Miller, who continues to have a good year for us on the defensive line. We're going to get a stop, and we punt, and we drop it. Trevor Wilson drops it. K-State records it. K-State recovers it, and long story short, they go down, and they go up 31-27, which ends up being the final score of the game. But, you never want to point fingers, because anybody that's watching the game is going to say, oh, we lost because Trevor Wilson dropped the punt. No, I wouldn't do that. I'm not going to do that as a fan, as a coach, as a teammate, or whatever, because there's other things that factored into it. We had 3 turnovers to their 1. You can't beat a ranked good team like that when you have 3 turnovers, So a lot of things happen. We dropped the interception, muffed the punt. So K-State can bleed the clock when they need to, and that's 2 straight losses for us. But I think I saw an interview with Devin Neal, and he talked about how Kansas has closed the gap in that Kansas State-Kansas rivalry, and I'm gonna agree with him, because it hadn't been pretty. It hadn't been pretty. We talked, when I talked to Brandon McAnderson last week on the show, he was on the last team to beat them in Lawrence, if I'm not mistaken, but the 2017, but the 2008 team also beat Kansas State, or vice versa. They beat them in Manhattan, but 2008 was the last time Kansas beat Kansas State. So we joke about the whole rivalry thing. That's not really a rivalry if you hadn't won in 14 years, but just some numbers to summarize the game, man. I still think we were the better team. We beat ourselves. We beat ourselves the last 2 games, in my opinion. And people could say, well, Kansas State just bet. Well, they netted 234 to 166. What was your stat last week? You said you had to hold Kansas State to what, 150 or 140? I think so, Eric. So you were right on that. So outrushed them 234 to 166. Passing, K-State had 165 to 162. That's nothing. So total yards of offense, 396 for Kansas, 331 for K-State. So that is that is a hell of a offensive output, for a team with a backup quarterback or a third string quarterback, a freshman quarterback getting his first start. So, hats off to my team still. Like I say, there is life at the end of the tunnel. Bowl season is coming. We still got to take care of Cincinnati. I'm not overlooking Cincinnati, but I was looking at some possible bowl projections, and I think they've got us. And what's funny about this, the projection was 1, Texas to the Fiesta Bowl, and then it's Kansas to the rare, I want to say, rate guaranteed bowl, which is also played at the same stadium as the Fiesta Bowl. So that's funny. And I think the projection is against Wisconsin was one of the teams, and the other team was Maryland. So that's obviously that's weeks down the road. So we're we're looking forward to that. But we're gonna jump. We're gonna go. You ready to get around the Big 12? Let's recap. Let's recap the 12, man, real quick. Baylor drops another one again. I feel for those guys. It's just that's part of football, man. And the struggles continue. TCU puts up 42 points, and they had struggled early in the year. Texas Tech continues to hold the rabbit foot. I don't know what's going on. I think did we both or did I pick? I don't know. I know I picked UCF for sure.
No, I picked Texas Tech.
Yeah.
I'm perfect the last 2 weeks.
Wow. Well, hey, respect. That's his flowers. He's perfect. So
no, honestly, I wanted to touch on the Baylor game just a little bit because I think you're going to see, from an administration standpoint, if they're going to take a position of apathy, and it's just kind of it's football. If we get it right, we get it right. If we don't, we're focused on other things. And as a university, I'm curious to see if they're going to continue to make athletics the forefront of the university, or if they're going to go back to their deeply held values and academics and all of those things. I think time will tell, because the window gets really small if you're at a school like Baylor, if you're at a school like TCU, if you're at a school like Houston, right? Those windows of opportunity don't stay open as long as they do at a Tennessee or at a Texas or at any other, at a Florida, right? Programs that were at the top, at the table, and then maybe suffered some long down stretches, right? You won't get that opportunity at Baylor. If once that program goes dormant, it's going to stay that way.
really.
Once Houston goes dormant, it's going to stay that way, right? For a while, for a long while. And you'll catch lightning in a bottle.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get a Kevin Sumlin, or you'll get someone that is truly innovative,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they've got something right now that the rest of college football hasn't caught up to yet. And those things may put you back at the forefront for a brief moment. But just as a program, I really want to see where they go. So, I love Dave Aranda, as a defensive mind, and everything that I've ever heard about him. No one's had anything but great things to say about him and that staff. So you do feel for them as individuals and as people. But I think as a program, you've got to start to ask, does athletics matter? And if so, what now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Texas Tech, like you said, rabbit's foot, or I'm of the belief they've just kind of found it right now. They are a part of it. Yeah, I'd never want to play a team that has confidence. One.
Well, we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out they found it. We're gonna find out.
But two, the way they found it is by running the ball.
Yeah. Well, and that's been no secret. We talked about Taj Brooks all year. So
that's gonna be interesting. He's a different kind of runner than Texas has faced. He's really good through contact, right?
Yeah,
he's not a make you miss. He's I see you, you see me, and I'm gonna go through you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I am curious when he meets what, again, I think is the best defensive line in the country. What happens? Who wins? What is it? The immovable rock and the what is it? The immovable rock and the and the movable object, whatever it is. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Unstoppable force meets the immovable object. There you go.
Yeah. There you go.
So I'm really curious to see how that pans out. Again, Oklahoma State, they've got the inside track right now to the Big 12 championship game. Curious to see what they do this week.
It's amazing.
Again, another thing that makes me smile if we get there, right? Because they also run the ball, right? And anybody that relies, that's why I'm like, if we get in at 4, and I may be silently pulling for Michigan, right? Because we get in at number 4 and they get in with number 1, I like our chances.
Yeah.
And then you got West Virginia. Again, speaking of, giving guys and programs kind of their flowers, I don't think there's any secret to anybody that follows the Big 12, follows West Virginia football. Neil Brown was absolutely coaching for his job this year.
Yeah.
And I thought those guys answered the bell.
Yeah, bowl eligible already. Yeah.
Answered the bell. Yeah. So, really excited to see what they can do in that next stage of the 12. I won't touch the Sunflower Showdown. I talked about Texas and Ohio State.
Yeah.
And then Oklahoma and BYU, right?
I watched that game. Yes, I watched.
BYU did everything they could to lose that game.
Dude,
And so I told you if I had to choose, right, do I want to play Oklahoma again or would I play any other Big 12 school in the Big 12 title? I want Oklahoma all day, every day, twice on Sunday.
And obviously for obvious reasons as well, because they got the best of y'all, and that old stat, it's hard to beat a good team twice, so
you need that lick back. Or
yeah.
you know what and it's twofold. I'm such a fan of college sports because they just mean more. The losses make you feel better. The wins make you feel better. The losses hurt worse. And what better opportunity than playing your forever rival with them having, because they have, I don't want to say more to play for because that's not true if you're Texas, because you're playing for an opportunity to play for a national title. But if I had the opportunity to play my forever rival and beat them twice in the same season, knock them out of playoff contention, I would be so dead set on wanting to convince them that I'm better than them. And that first game wasn't a fluke, because for all the talk, both from an analyst perspective, from a player perspective, from a college football as a whole perspective, I don't think anybody believed in Oklahoma and believed that they could do it again. Right. I think I saw something that if they were to play again, I think the spread would be Texas minus 8.5.
Wow.
Right. And that is disrespected the highest order. And I love that about college sports. Right.
Yeah.
How do you respond?
And that's the thing, because it was a long time ago since the Red River Classic, and those are two different teams now as well. So I mean, you got to look at how they're playing now. Yeah, it was crazy. What the BYU? I think they gave up 102-yard pick six when they're about to go up, like really put some pressure on Oklahoma, in Provo, and I'm
insanity.
Like, oh my gosh. Well, that's that. Well, and I like to look at some of the things that we're going to get into predictions in a second. But before we get into it, I like to talk about, so looking at the Big 12 overall, I mean, we've got more teams bowl eligible than we don't have teams bowl eligible.
Correct.
Am I correct? So, I mean, I think that really speaks to the Big 12. And I'm not talking about just Texas, Oklahoma, because they're going to SEC, but just other teams that has kind of picked their way back up. The Kansases of the conferences, UCF and them kind of finding their way. The steadies, Texas Tech is, I think they just became bowl eligible.
No, that was their fifth win.
Oh,
sorry.
Sixth.
That was their.
Let me look.
I'm looking at it now.
They're 6-5. They're 6-5.
Okay, yeah.
So they're both. Yeah. So they're both eligible. Yeah.
You're right.
So
I'm only looking at their conference record.
I got you. Yeah. West Virginia, who was dead early, 7. So I mean, I think I just as a Big 12 guy, I'm proud of the conference as a whole.
They've got 8 now, and could have as many as 10 bowl eligible.
Okay.
After Saturday, I do want to touch on the Big 12 and the new Big 12. I want to remind all of us never to be a prisoner of the moment, because I think early in the year, I think people were talking crazy, talking about, I pulled up some tweets from people, reputable people now. These aren't just, Joe 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 on Twitter. These are some reputable people who will remain nameless, but we're talking absolutely crazy. Feels like switching Colorado for Texas is like a push. When Colorado was hot at the time, beating a very average TCU team.
But nobody thought
again,
that
being better. Yeah. Again, being better than anyone had expected Colorado to be. Yeah. But anyone who would have listened, I always told them Colorado will come back down to earth because of simple things. You don't have the size. You don't have the depth. It is a long season. You will face injuries. Now, looking back on it, I think if Travis Hunter hadn't been hurt, you probably beat USC. You probably maybe get on
probably
a roll.
6 games. They're probably at 6 games.
They're probably at 6 games.
Yeah, they're probably at 6 wins right now. Yeah.
But instead, they'll finish because I have no faith. Sometimes, when things get written on in the stars and things have happened for so long, it just becomes who you are. I do think it's a bit too far gone now for them to get it back this last game. And not that in this game doesn't matter anyway, because it would only give them 5 wins, but I don't see that they'll get it back for this last game. I don't think Shador would even play, which I think is an odd thing, because when you're coaching your kid, he's definitely not going to play. If it's my kid and I'm his dad, and no, I'm not rolling him out there for a game. Don't matter, and he's already banged up.
It's gonna be looked at differently just because of the dynamic. It's gonna be looked
right.
at
And Utah
criticized.
being down, where I was going with it, Utah being down. I think of the teams this year that are of the 4 teams that are going to join the Pac-12, based on their record this year, Arizona is the best team.
Join the Big 12. Join the Big 12. Yeah.
Joining the Big 12. So I think Arizona is going to be the best team.
Yeah.
So I think
Cam Rising coming back. That was a big announcement for Utah this week.
Cam Rising coming back. I think Utah. But you know me, I'm a big oh my gosh, what's his name? Kyle Whittingham. I'm a big Kyle Whittingham fan. And just the gritty way that he plays. And I do think long term, I think 2 years from today, Deion Sanders is probably going into his final year at Colorado before he goes somewhere else. But I think they're going to be really good. I think they'll be a lot better this year. This next coming up year, because I do expect him to completely turn over the offensive line for sure. They'll probably bring in a new offensive coordinator, which is going to be weird. I never understood that. That'll be a longer conversation for another time, but you'll have to explain what he was thinking with trading out Sean Lewis, because that was the one part of their team that I thought was working. From an offensive perspective. But saying all that to say, you say
we'll talk off camera.
You say good riddance to us. You say good riddance to us. I say good luck to you guys. Because ain't nobody watching that, man.
It's tough,
but I think but I was gonna end. I had a positive angle to it. Other than I do think Brett Yormark, all his shenanigans aside, I do think as a commissioner of a league that has to be unconventional to still stay at the table, I think he's doing the right thing. I think, giving this sports entertainment aspect to it by their joint partnership with the WWE, I think expanding and wanting to play games in Mexico and foreign countries, I think he's doing things that long term will keep people talking about the Big 12. So those off years where you have a team go 12-0, like TCU had done in the past when they were in the Mountain West, and that Utah had done in the Mountain West, and those, every 2 or 3 or 4 years where those teams can do that, I do think they'll still be able to, have a seat at the table. But, on whole, I do think, the league gets a little worse, and that's okay. That's to be expected. But I think, if you're a fan of the Big 12, I do think you have the right guy steering the ship. And I do think you have a solid plan to be. You can fight for the third, especially if you look at the league as a whole, right? And you're fighting for, and you're talking about all sports, right? You'll have a solid fight with the ACC for being the third best conference in the country. I really do.
Well, like I say, games still got to be played. A lot of things can happen. Things are going to change, like you say. I'm just saying, but okay, if we want to go there, you want to roll your eyes. Texas is going. Tell me, and don't give me this. Oh, we're just so elite, too elite for the Big 12 that we got to go to play in the SEC. But why are you going to go join a conference? I'm talking about straight pride, competitiveness, being the king of the conference. At times, Texas has been called of the Big 12. Y'all are not going to ever be the king of the SEC.
Why not? Tell me why.
Just because y'all beat Alabama this year?
No, but hold on.
It's gonna be a learning curve as far as being in the SEC. As far as the I guess I will say the SEC is a better conference, so better teams week in, week out. The pounding of it. I mean, just the hold up of it. I think that's going to be a learning curve for you guys.
The games are arguably going to be more physical, but that's dependent on how do you feel about Iowa State. Because again, if you put taking biases aside, you put Kansas State, you put Iowa State in the SEC. Are they going? Are they going to compete with Georgia? Are they going to compete with Alabama? No, no. Right? Are they going to compete with Tennessee? Still, probably no.
But see, but you know what? But years
People,
ago,
but I
but if
think
you would have said that
I
about
think people get
Missouri, that would have been
shaded
your,
by
that would have
that.
been your answer for Missouri 2 years ago.
But hold on, no, because I don't know that Missouri is the example that you think they are. Because outside
I'm
of
not talking
that,
about Missouri now. I'm just saying,
well,
like,
no, I'm just saying outside of that first year where they joined, same way with Texas A&M, who hadn't done much of anything in the Big 12, right? When they joined, they had different things going for them. Johnny Manziel coming into Texas A&M with that Kevin Sumlin offense, all those things, right? That's one thing that worked in their favor. Missouri had some true NFL players on their roster at the time, which allowed them to compete. Now, once you lost that once in every 8 years, right, where you've got NFL guys, what happened? They fell off the cliff. Now, I'm of the opinion that Kansas and Kansas State and Iowa State are better programs now than Missouri was then, because I think they had lightning in a bottle. They weren't a program.
Yeah,
I
I
think
agree.
I think those three teams are built on a more solid foundation. So I feel like what gets lost in the conversation is people say, "Oh, Kansas would get blown out against the Tennessees, the Georgias, the Alabamas of the world," which is true.
Yeah.
But they don't take it to that second level of, okay, once you go through those three teams, you probably can put Missouri on that list right now because they've got some depth. I watched them. I was really impressed. But Kansas State even competed with them. So actually, I won't put them on the list. They needed a 60-plus yard field goal to beat them. So I won't put them on the list. So once you get past those three teams, who couldn't they compete with in the SEC on a given day? On a given Saturday this year, Jalen Daniels being healthy or Jason Bean being healthy.
Well, yeah,
Who
and I
couldn't
guess
you compete with on a neutral field?
I don't think Texas couldn't compete, but I just think sometimes you got to run into that same roadblock of
No. I'm saying no. I'm not even taking the Texas and Oklahomas because I think we can, but to really make the point, let's take a Kansas or Kansas State, whom Texas has beat, and I think we can agree that is a better program than.
Yeah.
I'm saying even those programs on a given Saturday, once you take those tier 1 teams out of it,
oh yeah, I agree. Yeah,
they can compete on a
yeah,
given Saturday. So for folks to say, "Oh, Texas can't go in and compete in the SEC," why can't they?
Well, I'm not. No, I said the king of it. I didn't say y'all couldn't compete. I know
Well,
y'all.
nobody's the king, because even when Alabama, and we can look at it now at the time, but in real time, those Alabama teams were still expecting tough games from Georgia, tough games from Tennessee, tough games from Florida, right? So what Texas fans, and here's your clip for the reel for the week, right? As a Texas fan going to the SEC, what are we most excited about? You're so sick and tired of being everybody's Super Bowl. You are so sick and tired of being everybody's best everything that you get these all-world performances. You break attendance records. Texas is going, I think, in its 9th consecutive sellout that they're going to play in front of on Friday, right? To being truly amongst peers.
They just buying them tickets. I've been to 2 of those games. They ain't been sold out.
To being truly amongst peers, because Texas, and I'm excited to play a team that is not at all concerned about Texas.
Well, Texas. I mean, and that's
it's another win for Georgia. It's another win. It's another game for Alabama. And I can't say that because Texas and Alabama is, once you start to play for national championships and once you start to play on a semi-reoccurring basis, the only team that I feel like in the SEC, when the schedule comes out year after year after year, that the only team that's going to circle Texas as, if we just win this one, our season is saved. And that's Hickville College Station, right? Outside of that, Everybody else is just worried about getting from week to week to week.
Yeah, yeah, and like I said, you know me. My perspective is ex player, coach, traditionalist. And that's fine. Like I say, that's why we talk because we have the perspectives. And I've got to catch up a little bit sometimes when it comes to like, okay, because this SEC format is going to be this pod format. Because my thinking, thinking about Texas just going to the SEC, I think about LSU, and I think about how LSU always had those good teams, but they could never get to the SEC championship because they could never beat Alabama in the
Right.
in within the SEC West, or East. So like it was like, does Texas run into that eventually? That's the thing I'm talking about, because it's not about talking about Texas as a program. It's not about winning games. It's going to be about conference championships, uh, college football playoff every year. It's not just to go in and compete in the SEC. It's to go in and win the SEC.
So
So
no
like,
different than it had been previously in the Big 12, where almost every year the Red River rivalry determined who was playing for and probably going to win the Big 12 title.
yeah,
How many? We went 10 years with that game deciding who played for the championship. So that will be the same in the SEC,
but
no
but
matter
a lot
what.
of times y'all got back though. Y'all still got to the Big 12 championship, to the game.
Right, because of that, because you
Yeah,
won that
yeah.
game,
So
right?
was there ever a time that y'all lost the Red River but still went to the Big 12 championship?
It never happened for us, it happened to us. Where we won that game, lost to Texas Tech, and because of the tiebreakers and the
Yeah,
BCS standings, they were doing the computer stuff at the time.
yeah. These good
That
old
messed us up and
BCS.
and cost us an opportunity to play for a national title. But I also think even that concern isn't so much as great, and talking to a traditionalist such as yourself, it may be one of the things that people say takes away from the glory of college football is now when you move to a 12 team, and ultimately I think it'll be 16 long term.
Mhm.
But we'll talk about the 12 for now. When you move to a 12 team playoff, you don't even have to win your conference anymore.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
SEC
Yes.
will
Yes.
the
Yes. Yeah.
SEC will
Yes.
probably send
Yes.
four
Because of the
teams.
seeding. The seeding. Yes.
They will probably send 3 to 4 teams to the playoff every year.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's it just changes so much, man. And like I say, I guess I'm showing my age. It's like it's just like it's so much like you're positioning yourself by prestige. Like say, like the funny quote, the shot that Harbaugh gave Ryan Day, like. People think when they start on third base, they didn't hit a home run. So but
Correct.
it's kind of like that. The SEC, the prestige of it is we're here, so you're gonna get those six. How many 6 to 7 teams are if depending on if they're 8 to 9 plus win teams, seated in that 12, and then like I say eventually 16 team playoffs. So I don't know, but that'll be a whole nother conversation, and we could talk about it, and it's crazy. At the core of me, just like when Texas A&M and all of them did it, I want to get down. I'm going to come back next week, and I'm just going to get a definite answer on whose fault it is that the Big 12 is going through what they're going through.
But
Yeah.
I would argue that it's him, because when you had these teams play with expansion the first go around, right? Texas almost going out west to the Pac-12.
Yeah.
That was your clairvoyant moment to say, all right, we've got 2 teams that front load this conference, and we can sugarcoat it and all we want to, but it is clear I think these Twitter detectives, man, and people with a bunch of time, it's great for them. But when you have these programs, I think when you look at their football attendance records of every existing Big 12 school, not including the newcomers from this year, but of the original Big 12, of the 10 records, 7% of those home attendance records come from either Texas or Oklahoma, right? So for those programs, you get tired of carrying the flag and splitting the money.
Yeah.
We do a group project between 12 people every year.
Yeah.
2 people do 80% of the work. and they still split the check 12 ways.
Yeah.
Nobody wants that. So Texas's demands were kind of clear looking back on it. Bring in some more teams. That way, this conference isn't so front loaded with us two. Or let's share revenue according to value.
Yeah. And like I say, you have great insight on all that other stuff. I really focus on, yeah.
Which by the way, side note, the Big 12 should have done, because if you split the pie and gave, Oklahoma and Texas 40% of the money and split the other 6% amongst the other 8 schools, they'd still be making more than they're going to make in the new 12. Just saying.
Wow. Well, I know you're a numbers guy, and when it comes to finance and all that, and yeah, it's I guess it's so much more that, and like depending on who you are, depending on what you really look at, I really look at teams, those teams are looking at, like you say, revenue, who's carrying the load, who's doing all the work and not getting the credit for it, or who's doing everything but still having to share the same amount of, return on everything, things like that. So there's so many things, and that was great, and we could, like, that, it could be a conversation in itself, a show about what the Big 12, how it's evolved, almost crumbled, reborn, and now kind of
Correct.
keeping up with
100%.
that, keeping up with those, right under the SEC and competing, like I say, with ACC or whoever. I mean, because golly, I mean, they just jumped. The Pac-12 just imploded, or the Pac-16 or whatever. It's just so it's a good thing. But we're gonna get into some chalk talk real quick. We want to talk about the zone read. Check it out. Okay, now we're gonna get into some chalk talk real quick. We're gonna talk about some zone, or should I say, we're gonna talk about split zone first. Then we're gonna build from that and kind of show how you can use the same run scheme, but you do some window dressing and kind of switch some things up to keep the defense on their toes. So we're going to first talk about split zone. We'll put them here. Better circle than that. All right. All right. We got a formation. So put this guy right here in a 5, outside shaded to tackle. That's a 5 technique. G head up or to inside of 2-eye. Some people call that a tight 3, outside shoulder of him. And then we'll put this in a 7, which is an inside shoulder of the tight end. That's called a 7 technique. Put the Sam right here, Mike backer, Will backer, that corner. Yeah, free. And all right. So we're gonna run split zone. We're gonna run zone right. Okay, so go up front first. So we're here. Double team, good hard inside arm by the tight end. Pop him. Climb to the Sam. Got a double team here. Eyeing the Mike backer. Gonna get here, protect our gap, double team, eyeing the Will. Okay. Fullback's gonna come across hard. I mean, right off this tackle's butt. Boom. Seal the backside. We got zone right with the backside protected. Split zone. However you want to open up, back's gonna run, hit it. We got a good running play. Okay, so that's split zone. So we're hitting them with the zone, split zone, hitting them. So now we're gonna change it up. They start to play aggressive. They start to play downhill. This end starts to beat this guy a little bit. He's starting to chase backside. So this would be the progression. Keep everybody else. Kind of OCD about that. All right, so tight end. Q. Back. All right. Got a formation. Yep. Same front. Put him in 7 here. All right. So now, like I said, we've been hitting them with the zone, with the split zone. Been killing them with it. So now this is the adjustment. They start to chase. They start to play real hard, downhill slanting. So it's on the right side first. Same deal. Double team here. Climb the next level. Double team eye on the mic. Boom. Double team here. Eye on the Will. Now what we're going to do is we're going to bluff, what we call a bluff, or whatever your terminology is. Going to come hard. Like we're going to hit him, and then we're going to go around him. All right. This guy now becomes the read player. Okay. Same action here. Running backs running. Quarterback's eyes are on him, so he's opening it up to this end. This end chases hard. Quarterback's going to pull the ball right here off the mesh, come out the back door with a lead blocker. Cleaning up here. Anything, if he hadn't chased hard on the zone action from the back, he's gone. We're to the next level, blocking the free safety. Got to play right there. Okay, so we went from split zone to zone read with a lead blocker. Okay. Next progression off of that. All right, here we go. Same formation. Defense sees the same thing. That was very off. All right, so slight adjustment. We're going to put him off the ball. We're going to put him on. He's covered up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're legal. Enough men on line of scrimmage. Here we go. Some defenses may recognize it, some may not. It might not mean anything. Okay, so we're here. We're here. Back in that 7, Sam. You know, we're playing corners here. Yeah. Corner here. All right, so been split zoning them, been reading them a little bit. Now I'm going to add a wrinkle to it, taking this guy and brought him off the ball. And just the next thing is what we're going to do is we're going to just motion him right here. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. We're going to motion him right there. So what is that going to do? It's going to maybe make these guys roll. He could give a action that he's coming hard across, might make this guy come down, might make him roll, might make him drop, might change the coverage, might be a call. Don't know. But that's what we're hoping to get. So now that's pre-snap. Ball snapped. We're here. Boom. We're here. There. Boom. Here, there. Same deal. Reading him. He's chasing. Bluff. Same deal. Cleaning up anything to the next level. Quarterback pulls it. But now we have a pitch man. And this guy could be anywhere. But this is the free player. But now he is the pitch man on the option between the quarterback and this receiver. All right. So now we got another play. So now just that motion, maybe get him, snap it here when he's in the backfield. We're here, pulling it, reading him, got a lead blocker, load blocker, reading the cornerback as a pitch man on triple option. And you could take it a step further for a fourth play, roll them, bluff them, run them off, drop back, throw it, or have this guy as an outlet. So that's just me thinking it through. But I just want to talk about those 3 zone, split zone, zone read, and zone option off of that. So I hope you enjoyed that chalk talk. But yeah, we're gonna move on, man, because we promise we're gonna keep it short for the holiday because I got to go fry turkey. I know you got to go do some things.
I had to fry too.
Wow. So we're gonna get into these predictions right here, and you made a note to say that you've been perfect. So I'll give you your flowers on that. How about your national game? Did it hit last week?
It did not, because I believe I had Oregon State over Washington.
Okay, yeah,
and it did not.
If anybody cared, Montana did win over Montana State, but the Ivy League boys let me down. I split. Yale ended up beating Harvard at home.
Okay.
So I split. I'm gonna be honest about that. So, there's no reason to go into it. We see these games coming up this week. Friday, 2 big games.
First time we've been aligned. First time we've all picked the same, by the way.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's a good omen or bad omen. We're already both eligible, so I don't care what happens. Yeah. But no, so we're up front, man, and our national game, man, it's big, and we talked about it. I'm gonna go with the Michigan Ohio State game. So not even, like I said, you throw out, it's a rival. It's a big time game. 2 teams that are, in the top 4. college football playoff. Last 2 years, Michigan has won. They don't have their coach. That stuff. He's still prepping them. He's preparing them.
Put your coaching hat on. How much if you had to put a value on it, right? How much does that affect Michigan, knowing that Harbaugh is able to practice with, lead practice all through the week. He even travels. He's been traveling with them
Yeah.
and staying at the hotel. So he's literally with them up until the moment that they leave for the game. So how much does not having him on the sidelines affect them?
That's a twofold. It's a twofold answer to me. So from the player perspective and the team, I think you can use it as motivation and kind of win one for the Gipper. We're doing this for Coach Harbaugh. It's us against the world. They keep persecuting our coach. He's prepared us. He's given us everything that we need. We're going to go out there and do it, not just for Michigan, but for Coach Harbaugh, because he brought me here. He believes in me. You don't know what he's telling these kids as far as like, we got to go do this, and we're gonna get through this, and we're gonna be there. That I think so. That's a positive way that you can use that, not having the coach, because at the end of the day, everybody has their position coach who they spend more time with throughout the week, and and getting prepared for the game, and then you do your head coach. That's just the reality of it. Yeah, the head coach is the boss, but your position coach is who you spend, who preps you, who watches film with you, who gives you extra time when you needed to do those things. Now on the other side, as far as the coaching leadership role, I think when you prepared your staff for situations, as if and it don't even have to be like I'm banned because of the NCAA. It could be a family emergency. It could be a sick. You got to have countermeasures in place, and have a contingency plan for such things. But at the same time, he's the head coach for a reason. And when it comes down to those decision-making things, those fourth down, those analytics, now the game has changed where you've got this book, you've got analysts that's all their job is to be, offensive and defensive analysts. But at the same time, he's the head coach for a reason. And when sometimes you go with your gut, sometimes you go with the numbers, sometimes you go with, I've been in this situation in this game before. He's also played in this damn game before, as a Michigan alum. So that's where that's important. So it's a give and take, not to
To an
not
untrained eye, I
yeah
felt like it did show itself last week, because
yeah
I felt like Sharon Moore just was either told or just had in his mind, I'm going
yeah
for everything fourth and third
yeah
or shorter. I'm gonna go for it.
it
And I
was a
thought
yeah.
I candidly thought some of them were bad calls, given just
Mhm.
time and score situations. I thought you could have took the points and changed the possession count and all those things. Ultimately you win, so you can't tell, you can't call out
Well, yeah,
mistakes from a win,
nobody's
I
gonna
guess. But
question it. Yeah, nobody's gonna question it when you win, but I think if I'm the player, I don't feel so worried about it. If I'm
right.
the coach, if I'm a young coach, if I'm a coach trying to find my way, and this game is, so important, I'm a little not worried, but I'm saying, there's going to be situations that I, as a coach, haven't been in. I'm talking about me personally. I've coached 15 years, but there's still tons of situation scenarios that I haven't seen and don't know. Now nobody's going to come out and say I don't know what to do. You practice for situations. There's situational football. There's, like I say, there's decisions made. You and I have talked about, why teams go for two. There's, everybody knows about the chart that's out now. So there's a bunch of different factors and variables that you can put into any decision that's made. But at the end of the day, like I say, you ride with your head coach and you believe in him. Now, Coach Harbaugh can say, hey, this is the guy that's representing us as the interim, whatever, but we've all got a role. And now I think it becomes as, okay, I'm gonna take care of my job. So it's like two teams in a sense. It's like the football team on the field, and it's the team, the coaching staff as a team, because it's a collective effort, because nobody is really the guy. Nobody's really, the
Right.
head coach. It's just guy acting head coach or interim head coach. So everybody has a respect level. Is like, we're gonna do this for us. So I don't know, man. It's a lot of things that can kind of light a fire under Michigan. But with that being said, I'm gonna go with Ohio State to win. I think I think the points are, I had a bunch of stats for it. I'm not gonna get into it, but I think it's Michigan's a 3.5 point favorite. Um, but I'm gonna go with Ohio State.
I'm actually gonna go with Michigan. I think because defense travels, and that staff is fully intact. Those decisions are fully intact. If it were to be Ohio State, I do think you would show. I do think John Harbaugh being there would show itself in some form.
And that's what I'm
Either
saying. It's gonna
Ohio
be
State comes out and blitzes them, and you don't have the tried and true John Harbaugh there to calm them down. And guys, we've been in this situation, and I've navigated you through this before. Or it's an absolute nail biter in the biggest game of the year, and you've got a guy sitting in the seat that is not tested.
It's
And
all
it's
it's gonna
thinking
be
about
situational football.
thinking about all of these things, because I'll be honest, and I do think so many things play a factor in it. One, being an assistant and knowing that you don't have the grace that Harbaugh would if you make the wrong call.
Yes.
Not to throw race and everything, but being a black man on a big stage, I think matters. And you think about all these things in that 0.5 seconds that you've got to make this decision. And sometimes there is just too much. And I think that's why coaches, Steve Sarkisian talks about this, that he talked about, like, before the Alabama game, he saw the governor on the sideline. He saw Matthew McConaughey on the sideline, Vince Young, all these people, and he couldn't talk to them. He said, I didn't speak. I didn't do anything because I couldn't take in any more information than what I had in my brain and how I needed to be focused.
You're ready to go.
So I do think there is a such thing as too much information that you have to process. And I think Sharon Moore might be in that situation.
And like you say, I will add this to it too. Even though you hadn't been told or nobody's talking about it, you're as a competitor and someone with ambition, because all coaches are competitors and you have ambition. This is kind of an audition for me without it being an official audition to say, okay, he was thrown into this situation. How did he handle it? You're thinking about how I'm going to look as a coach rather than say, you know what, I just did what they asked me to do. And then, I went back to, that's going to be a factor. Once again, it's a rivalry game. Sometimes that just gets, all this stuff gets thrown out, but I'm gonna go with Ohio State. So you're standing on Michigan, huh?
I am, and now I've got a lot of background noise, and now I'll take Oregon as well.
Yeah, so we're gonna wrap it up. He's trying to wrap it up. So I want Oregon State to win, but I think Oregon is the better team. So Oregon is gonna win. Oregon's gonna win.
Go Beavers.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you as always, man. I don't know if I'll see you. Oh, I will. I'll probably see you. Yeah. I don't know. We'll probably going to the game, but everybody out there, thanks for rocking with us. Appreciate the support, the subscriptions, the likes, the comments, man. I mean, it's just something we're doing, man, and we're enjoying it. But like I said, we're all in. We're locked in. Y'all have a blessed, happy Thanksgiving. As always, rock chalk.
All right, boss. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. See you.